And now I invite our friend Jörg Fassbinder with his team who were working in Iraq, and he will talk about prospecting in the Arabic marshlands.
Sorry. Okay. So thank you very much, Dima, to invite us for your conference and to being in Moscow again after these years. I will introduce you to the latest work we did in Iraq. So after Russia, paradise for magnetics, the next time is Iraq, which is also some kind of paradise for magnetics. Yeah, I underline this saying. So we worked meanwhile a lot of sites. We started very early 1989 in Ashur, and this year we were able to return to Ashur and to complete at least the lower city. And a new site we measured was also Khorshabad, which is an Iron Age. It's a capital of the Assyrians. And today, however, I will talk about the marshlands in the southern part. So mainly of Ur, Uruk, Farah, and Izin, and recently also in Seleucia. We worked in Seleucia. So I start with Farah Shurupak because it was one of the main cities which are situated at the Euphrates branches and give place to very important waterways, and it was of great economic, religious, and political importance. With a size of nearly 200 hectares, it is one of the largest sites in the area, and the main mount rises about 110 meters above the present plain, and the lower city extremely shallow and gives place to irrigation and is mainly affected also by water, high water level. So just a little bit about the archaeology. Farah period, it is the Sumerian of the Farah period is, as you can see, 2500 to 2400 BC. And of course, it's the city which is named the city before the Great Flood. Today, it looks like that. So you see there is no more water at the moment because the Euphrates rivers moved further to the west, and now it's more or less dry land. But it's mentioned in the Sumerian king list as the location of the last dynasty before the flood, and of course mythical place of origin of the Gilgamesh epos and so on. So you see here the area of Farah and the little mount, and of course there are many reports in the Bible of the Great Flood and so on. So the origin of the Christian Bible is found this place here. This is how it looks today in the marshes. You see there is reed and water, and the people can live there in little huts, in little islands. They have fish, they have beef, and they have the reed. So that's all what they need, and somehow they are independent people in these areas. You see here some pictures with their families, how they live in the marshes. The marshes were dried out during the regime of Saddam Hussein, but meanwhile they are flooded again. Geophysical prospecting methods we applied in the marshy environment was mainly magnetometer prospecting, but what I told you already, it's somehow really ideal conditions for us, but also resistivity prospecting, as it was shown by Job Orban, and special application we did earth-resistant tomography in order to get some information about the depth of the features beneath the ground, which is not possible to do by the magnetometer survey, since this is a potential field and it's hard to calculate a depth value of the data. And of course, we did some mineral magnetic analysis as soon we could have the possibility to get samples and so on, and magnetic susceptibility measurements on site. These are the instruments we applied. You all know of them. These are our good old cesium magnetometers, which we applied, system of Syntrax and geometrics, but also Ferrix Förster instruments, which we applied occasionally on Farah. This is how the sites are looking like. You see, there is still a muddy area. It's really a bumpy ground, and there's no way to go there by car or by any wheeled device system to cover the area. You have to walk, and you walk in this area like in the deep snow. It's really hard to do it. You see, you sink into the ground by your feet, and you can imagine what kind of work it is to cover the areas. Large areas are affected by looting after the Iraqi war, American-Iraqi war 2003. Iraqi people, poor people, started looting systematically these places, and these areas are also not suitable for magnetometer prospecting. I will show you some case area of it. This is how it looks like. So this area we have to exclude from our survey, and I recommend very much to archaeologists to refill these pits to continue with archaeological work there. This is how it looks from the drone. You see our steps leaving traces in the ground, and the next year they will be removed. This is the site of Farah Shurupak. Wait, I try to show. Do you see the laser point? Yeah. Okay, this is the mount itself, and here's the old trace of the Euphrat River. And as you can see, there's a lot of water constructions, maybe beneath, next to the city of Farah, but it was not researched at all. And you see these stripes, which are excavated traces from Walter Andre. He worked there 1903. And in order to get an idea about the city, he made such trenches across the city, which are up to 900 meters in distance. This is the plan of this site. You see how he organized the trenches, but he missed many important parts of the city. This is an elevation model of the city. You see there should be some canals around it. Here is the Euphrat River, where you can drive by car. This is the only area where you can drive because the sediments are really hard. And you see a nice mound here on this side, which was also partly surveyed excavated by Walter Andre. But what we found, this is the measurement we did in total there. You see, we tried a little bit inside the city where they expected the palaces, but one of our exciting discoveries was the discovery of the city wall, which runs along here and probably here around along the Tigris River. And Walter Andre stopped his trenches just a few meters before the city wall, so he didn't recognize it, and everybody was surprised that we found a city wall. Inside the city, there's an area which could be a palace, and we surveyed this area, although it is looted. Nevertheless, we recognized this area from the further excavations, but unfortunately on the rest of the area it was hardly to discover something. By the way, these are the traces of a paved road. First of all, the archaeologists had the idea that these are big walls, but it wasn't. Anyhow, so and this area was free of looting because looters expect there is nothing more to find since it was excavated. This is how it looks like from the near area. You see here these looting pits, and they show up also in the magnetics and masking all these details of it. By the way, this is the paved road. It's paved with pottery, and that's why it shows up as a positive magnetic anomaly. That was very interesting. But coming to the main point, we also surveyed a huge part along the harbor, which we call now the harbor, because it was not clear beforehand that this could be the harbor. And of course, for archaeology, it would be boring to make excavation in the sediments of the Euphrates River. And also here was very interesting. Here we found some kind of a bridge and further installation outside of the city. You see there are probably fields and irrigation areas. Inside the city, you see the structures. More in detail, you see here the city wall, which changed its shape very often. Also here, old canals and, of course, building complexes inside the city. And more detailed view into the area which we call now the harbor. So there was an excavation here of a huge wall, but it turned out this is a canal which goes inside to a harbor complex. This was a former huge building, a monumental building, which was partly looted. And there are many, many constructions which are really hard to find for archaeologists. First of all, as I told you, they are boring, and then it is difficult to understand the features. But when looking on, so this is the interpretation now of our data. You see here these canals and the traces of the canal, the city wall here, and this huge complex, and here this dam, and interesting also these round holes here, which belong probably, so this is old pictures of people in Iraq who built such devices, such dams. They used reed, they included some pottery in it, in some mud, and then they make these rolls, and then they constructed this huge dam to control the water system in this area, which is very important when you have high water and so on. I steal these pictures from a book which was published only in the 1960s. It was top secret from the American Army. It was produced in 1944, and it was only published later. What we see also is these rounded spots, and it took a while till we could understand what it could be. But in Iraq, and also in the old pictures and the old tablets, you found these kind of boats. They are so-called gufa, or kufa. So they are rounded boats, and that's where they found it till nowadays on the city in Iraq at all. And we also did some further survey on this feature, which we found out that should be a bridge. We did some resistivity survey, we found the walls of it, and we now can compare it with other features which were found in this area. For example, here this is ours. This is found by Lionel Darras in Larsa, and this one we found in Uruk, in Ur, and this was the only one who's excavated in Girsu. Yeah, I'm just a short view to the latest findings in Uruk. We try to complete the whole area of the city, which is at least more than 4 kilometers in diameter. And also here details of a barrage and the construction of the waterways and all these hydraulic installations we found. Also interesting that the main channel is obviously not divided here really, but only a small trench here. And also we found a boat by chance, which we did not found by prospecting. It was simply visible on the ground. We did some susceptibility survey on here, and you see there is not a much contrast between the adjacent soil and these remains of the reed boat. So it should be here. Hard to explain. These are the traces of the old canal, and the boat was obviously on the shoreline of this canal. Finally, this was excavated. That was done very recently, and it was tried. They tried to take it as a whole complex, bring it to the Museum of Baghdad, and finally, this is how it looks like. They have to cut it because it was too large for transport to the Baghdad Museum. And by this, I stop here my presentation. Thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you for having me here in Moscow for this meeting. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jörg. That's really brilliant results and very interesting presentation. I'm sure there are a lot of questions and comments here and in Zoom, please. Yeah, Alexei, of course, he will comment and his paper will be the next. So he will this.
I try to
get so glad to see you here, and thank you very much for your presenting your astounding results. I have a rather minor question about Farah. Did your colleagues suggest any date for the harbor?
No, the date is not yet fixed because we have no excavation there so far. So the archaeologists didn't start the excavation. It was just our measurements we did.
I see. There is a rather strange thing for hydrography. The canal leading to the harbor is very straight, which in our experience shows that it was not long-lived. In Farah.
In Farah, no, I'm not sure if we can say that it was not long-lived. So
yes, here.
Very
straight, especially southwestward, southwestern part of it.
Yes, you have to imagine that every year or every second year there's a huge water flood and covering the features, so it will change a lot as long there is water. But as soon as the water is off, and it is nowadays it's off, it remains like it is now. So this is the last stage of the situation there, and it is not anymore transformed by modern irrigation or water. So
yes, but we see a lot of traces.
Yeah, inside the Euphrates River, there are a lot of traces, but they are from the cars, because this is the only area where you can drive a car.
I see.
I'm afraid I will stop your discussion. Yes, because we have no more questions. Yeah.
Yeah. I just try to go out. Sorry, I don't know what is wrong. Maybe I stop my.
I thought that Sergei Smikalov has a question. No.
No, really, it's not really one question. What do you think, Jörg? I don't know the history of Iraq. How many years ago this water-filled area with river became a dry place?
This is also a difficult question. As soon as the city was given up, it was because there was no more water there. So this is I have to check the archaeological findings there. I'm not so familiar. I'm not archaeologist, but I think
the time of this
the city was stopped by the Great Flood that took place already in ancient times, and that was the end of the city. So this was the only that was the point.
So there is no different times for known times for this question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lots. Are there any other questions? Yes, please. We'll have one more question and then we will go further. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I sorry, I just try to stop the
Red
screen
button.
sharing. I don't find any button here.
Push
So
red button, please. In this case, you can do it. You
I,
should.
Hello, can you say what type of magnetometer did you use?
I use a cesium magnetometer, both the Syntrax in earlier times, and now we have this geometrics. We use it as a total field instrument, and that's why it looks like that. So it's not a gradiometer like the flux gate, where you measure only the gradient, but you measure the total field, which allows more details and it's more sensitive than all other instruments.
And you use two magnetometers?
I use two sensors in parallel, and then I survey this in parallel.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you so much again. Thank you, Jörg, and thanks to Joab. We really had a small part of our conference like an international, and now we start speaking Russian again, if you do not.
That's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good luck for all your conference, and good luck for future, and hope to see you sooner or later again in person.
Hopefully,
Thank you.
hopefully. We all of us hope. Thank you.